Good evening, Board President Rendo Trejo, members of the board, Superintendent Matsuda, cabinet members, members of the public, and the public viewing online. Tonight, I'll be updating the budget based on the current budget information that we have as of date at this point. And so, as you guys all know, we have been having a lot of roller coaster rides, right, through the whole budget at this point. The state budget continues to be worsened at this point. And so, back in January, I did some update how the Legislative Analyst Office forecasted already a $58 billion deficit already for the 24-25 budget at this point. And so that's a big concern for us. And just on February 20th, the LAO's office released additional information, and there is an additional $15 billion of deficit going in. And so this would increase the deficit to $73 billion at this point. That's with a 0.76% COLA that we currently have for going into next year. However, there is a possibility of a 0% COLA that we are hearing already at this point. And just to remember, we, during the height of the COVID-19, back in 2021, we did have a 0% COLA at that time. And so it was not that long ago that we did have to experience a 0% COLA. So I just want to remind everyone about that number there. And as we go into the forecast for the 24-25, as part of our second interim report, wanted to bring you back to see what was presented from starting of the adopted budget year to what is being projected currently. So the initial budget that was proposed back in June of 2023, already at this point, was about $419 million. And at the first interim was $420 million, and that COLA was actually increased to 3.94% COLA. By second interim, which is what the report we are bringing to board tonight, the COLA drops to 0.76%. And so then the total LCFF base revenue goes down to $410 million. And so that is about a $9.6 million difference between what was back in June to what is presented at this point. And if we project a 0% COLA that we're looking at for next fiscal year, this would decrease the projection to $407, almost $408 million for a district, and that would be a $2.2 million decrease from even the current budget at second interim. So as you can see, the budget shifts a lot, right? There's increasing COLA, changes in COLA, and all these things. And so if you're just even looking at the adopted budget to what the possibly could be a second interim budget already, to see what it could be like based on the 0% COLA, the difference is almost a $12 million difference in a single fiscal year. And so just wanted to point that out. This is what the projection could look like moving into next year. So I wanted to share with some of the indicators for our districts, as you have all seen in this chart, and we have been sharing this with a lot of our school sites as well. This is the enrollment projection. If you're going back to 2011-12, at the height, we were at almost 33,000 students. This fiscal year, we are currently, we dropped to about 27,000 students. And if you look back to 12 years of time, we dropped overall about 5,500 students. But the drop is actually accelerating. In the first 6 years, between 2011-12 to 2017-18, we dropped about 2,000 students. But in the last 6 years, we dropped about 3,500 students. And the forecast for the next 4 years going out, we are looking at to drop over 4,300 students by the time 27-28. And so we want to make sure that you see this is the numbers we are receiving, and we do use our feeder school data to get us this information from the 5 different feeders, and we project them out for the out years. And unfortunately, this phenomenon continues to drop. Over in Orange County, as a county, we have dropped over $60,000 since COVID even started. And so it's a phenomenon.
60,000 students, not dollars.
No, sorry, 60,000 students in Orange County. Yes, thank you. The other issue that we are having is the attendance rate. And so prior to COVID, our district were at about 95%. And during the COVID year, we were safe that year. So the state gave us the prior year numbers to help us with that. And the first year we came back from COVID, we were still at a 95% rate, which is phenomenal. Other districts dropped around 90% or even below that. And we came back extremely strong, and so do want to thank all the teachers and all the staff that work really hard to make sure that our kids come back to a very safe environment and to make sure that they did not continue to lose their learning. So very appreciate everybody's hard work for that. But something happened started last year. We started to see the drop in attendance rate. And so it was each month as we opened school, it was dropping almost a percentage a month. And so last year, our rate was actually at 91%. And unfortunately, we were hoping that, with all the different things we're doing, we're hoping the number would come back up. Unfortunately, based on the projections at P1 that we finished back in December, we're looking at a P2 number of our attendance rate of about 90% at this point.
Dr. Nian, that's attendance rate, that's not enrollment rate, correct?
No, this is attendance. And yes, thank you for that question. We get paid based on attendance and not enrollment. So this is something that we want people to be aware of. The district gets paid only when students show up to school, right? And so it's very important you show up to school. But if you're sick, we understand. But unfortunately, we have now dropped 5 percentage points from where we were at traditionally in the past. And so this is something very concerning, and so we need to continue to work on that to see, is there other ways? I know even for independent studies, we're now doing, 3 days if you can do that. And so just need to make sure you plan in advance and let your school know if you're gonna be out more than 3 days, we can try to plan for that. And it was 5 days. So anything that we can recover in attendance, it will help us. And so if we can even, get a percentage up, and we were hoping we can do that. Unfortunately, our trend now is moving towards the lower attendance rate. Now, just wanted to make sure we all know this is a phenomenon across the entire state as well at this point. Something happened during COVID. Districts dropped already back in 2020 to 23. They were all already statewide between 90 to 91%. So we were actually one of the districts that had better attendance rate. So I want to tell everyone, I'm very proud of all the work you have done. But then something happened, right? And kids are just not coming to school. I think just different things. But this trend now has become a new normal for most of districts across the entire state. And so this is something that we saw it coming, but we want to make sure that, and I know a lot of staff are working hard to get the kids to come on campus, and we know that. And we just need to figure out if there's another way to tackle this. But this has now become a statewide problem as well. So talk about enrollment and talk about attendance. The next slide here, I want to share with everyone is the enrollment versus certificated teachers. So we just even going back 2017-18 and to what currently. So I shared that we lost in this period, in 6 years' time, over 3,500 students. And that's a lot of students. So for example, even Anaheim High Schools now, it's around 3,000 kids, right? A little below that. But can you imagine we're losing an entire school? But if you look at our staffing, going back to 2017-18, we had about 1,231 teachers at that time. And you're looking back, and if you're looking at what current staffing, we're about 1,233. And we do know that there were the reasons why we had the increasing staffing. So we had the student load. There was a contract that we did that was agreed upon with ASTA to lower the student load. So for junior high and Oxford, the load went from 222 to 213. And for the high schools, it went from 195 to 188 for class load. So it's not a class, it's a class load, student load, that's what we call it here. And so that first 3 years in 2018-19, 2019-20, and 2021, because of the agreement, the staffing did go up, right? Because that's what we said, we're gonna do this agreement, and that what happened. And also, COVID happened. And so in 2020, right, and then we also got additional money for some of the one-time dollar that came through. And so obviously we were able to put some of the pandemic dollars into staffing, and so that staffing did go up during those times. And last year, we did have to adjust because a lot of the pandemic funding did ended last year. Some of the ESSER dollars did already concluded. The ESSER 1 and some of those dollars did conclude already at that time. And so currently, where we're at is we are declining enrollment over 3,500 students, but yeah, we have the same level of staffing as what we had back in 2017-18. So,
Dr. Ning, can you explain what ESSER funds are? for the
so
audience?
these were the COVID dollars that the district received after COVID that happened, and they were various funding as one-time dollars. And really, that money was supposed to get additional support, right? So you can buy different things, or you can hire additional staffing to come and support so that we can navigate through this pandemic.
Okay, so what AUHSD did then, just to clarify, we put this COVID money, the one-time money, into temporary staffing, knowing that that is going to go away eventually, where other districts, they didn't put it into people, they put it into things like plexiglass shields, et cetera, around the campuses.
So yes, well, we really value staff and wanted to make sure that our students have the support. So the district at that point did hire staffing for that, where a lot of districts did not do that. Okay. And if we were to go back to where we're at with in terms of staffing, and if we can go back as 2017-18 as kind of like our base year and where we would be, basically accounting for declining enrollment. And obviously, we have been declining, right? I've been here telling the public, telling the board that we need to address this problem. And we do know that you know, we are tackling that right now with the School Consolidation Committee as well. We know that we have this huge declining problem, and we're facing that problem as we speak, and working with Western staff and Orange View staff to do that. So, but this will be the staffing based on if we did not have the agreement, nor if we did not have the additional dollars, what would the staffing look like? If you can see here, in 2018-19, we would have about 1,217 teachers, but in reality, we actually had 1,276, so that's an additional 59 teachers. And at the high, whereas, you know, we had the pandemic funding, as you can see back in 22-23, we had over 1,344 teachers at that time. And we did make some staffing adjustment, obviously, for current year, but do want to show the illustration that due to the various things, the two things was basically the pandemic funding as well as the agreement with the bargaining group that we did lower the class sizes, right, at that point.
So what you're saying then is over the last 6 years, since 2018, we have exceeded, I should say, we have been under the negotiated maximum load, correct?
Yes, correct.
And at the end of this year, with the unfortunate RIF notices going out and the layoffs that we're looking at, we will still be under the maximum class size?
Correct.
Correct? Okay, thank you.
And class load, yeah, class load. So there's other obligations that we do have. We have the STIRS and PERS district contributions, you can see here. That continues to go up. Unfortunately, it's very expensive to pay for the pension, and we have always keep going back to the state level and ask them, is there any way that the state can try to help with this to begin with? And so we'll continue to lobby for that.
Just to clarify the difference between STIRS and PERS and what that means.
Okay, thank you. STIRS is for a lot of folks who are in teachers or even certificated management principals. They're most likely in STIRS. PERS are anybody who is classified. For myself, I'm in a PERS membership, and so that's for mostly classified folks. Thank you. Great question. And as you can see this chart here, this is our health and welfare benefits and how much we have spent compared to what we're projecting. As you can see, healthcare is very expensive. We went from back in 2009, 2010, about $40 million, and by the time 2026, 27, it's going to be almost double to about $79 million at that point. So we need to continue, and we have a great health benefits committee, so really do thank all the folks who are on the benefits committee, really helping us to navigate this. And I know that we have done a lot of, the group has done a lot of amazing work, so really do want to thank all the bargaining group who have participated in that committee. It's a lot of work, and we meet every month, and there's a lot of different things that we talk about to try to make sure that we get the best benefits for everybody in our entire district.
Yeah, even with what you just said, the fantastic job the committee is doing, the cost per employee went up over $1,000
Yes,
for this year.
this year.
Which was not paid for by the employee, it's paid for by the district.
Correct. So we do not have any we do not have any employee contribution in our district. And our group work really hard to make sure we can support our staff. And this is something that's very important to staff. We understand, but the costs keep going up. And so there's different things that we're trying to do, and they're very, very cost conscious. So even when we see increases, they try to look at different ways to try to help the plan. So I do want to really take the time to thank the committee members. It's really, really hard. And, and we, and many of them, if they have any problems, they do tell their reps who's on the committee, and they do come back to tell us on the committee. So we do hear from you guys. So please know that any concerns you guys have, you can always call the office. We have staff working on health benefits, but it's also good to let your reps know so that they can tell us once they get to a committee. And so I think we do hear what the pulse is, in the district. So that's been extremely helpful. And now I want to go into the second interim budget assumptions so you can see, and then the multi-year projections that we see are going to be projecting. And so you can see here, current year, our cost of living adjustment is at 8.22. Next year is currently at 0.76%. So as I noted, we are looking at possibly a 0% COLA. That's the number that's been floating around currently due to the revenue shortfall at the state level. And the out years is at 2.73% and 3.11%. We do not believe those two numbers in the out years will hold based on the current year COLA at this point. And so, but obviously we use the numbers that the county give us, and so those are the number we're using, but we need to be extremely cautious since we do not want to over-project the revenue in the out years. And we are very concerned about that.
Can you explain to the audience what LCFF COLA means?
Perfect. So it's local control funding formula, and COLA is the cost of living adjustment. And so what the state do is the LCFF is our base funding, and that basis funding is calculated based on the attendance rate. And so we take those numbers, and then you would apply the cost of living adjustment, the COLA, onto your base. Unfortunately, because we're in declining enrollment and declining attendance rate, those numbers are dropping. And I can, as we can saw earlier when we show you those numbers. And so our base funding overall is dropping at this point, even though it's supposed to increase, but unfortunately is decreasing because of even though are getting a little adjustment to go up, but since we are in decline, our attendance rate is lower as well, so our base dollars are going down. So for example, next year, our LCFF is projected to be about $422 million, and the year after in 25-22, even with the 2.73% COLA, it's going down to $410 million. And so the issue we're running into is our base funding is continuing to drop, so that we cannot continue to sustain what we have. So there's some adjustments that needs to be made. Okay. And as you can see, I do want to point out you can see the PERS. We talk about the STRS and PERS contribution, the employer contribution. So PERS, employer contribution, this is very, very expensive. 26.68%, and going up to beyond 28.9% by 26-27. So for every dollar that the district pays an employee, then there's the district contribution of the, so for example, current year is 26 cents going into that. And then the employee also have to do their contribution as well. And so, but the employer portion has continued to go up. It wasn't even that long ago, the contribution rate was at 13.02%. And so this has more than doubled, so this is a very big problem for all the employers at this point across the state. This is the budget assumptions on the enrollment and the declining enrollment. And so as you can see in the out years, we are projecting a 1,350 student decline for next year, and then another 1,185 decline for enrollment, and then 935 decline. So if you look at 1,350 students, that's the size of I was at junior high school. I mean, even we have some senior highs that are getting almost to that level. So it's like you can imagine an entire school that students, basically, we lost them. And so that's the best way I can describe it. And so I think sometimes we cannot realize, because we still have a lot of students. So when you walk on campus, you're just like, I think it feels good. Oh, it feels okay still. But if you look at the hard numbers, and these, because we are a high school district, we get very good data from our feeders, and our numbers been very tight all these time as well. And so unfortunately, this is a phenomenon in our district. The average home prices, the selling prices in Anaheim, for example, is over $900,000 at this point. And in some of the other cities within our district, they're over $1 million now. And so it's just very difficult for families to continue to get into the district at this point. This next slide here will show you our total revenue for general fund in the unrestricted and restricted funding. Overall is $605.8 million for current year. And as you will see, bulk of our money, 70%, is coming from the local control funding formula, the LCFF. We do have still some one-time dollars in this budget, as we have some of the other funding that are coming through. So some of the extra dollars are still there at this point. The next slide here is the total expenditures. As you will see here, our total expenditures is about, for second interim, is at $678.5 million. And I know this is a little hard to see, but this is our multi-year projection. The law requires us to make sure we have a current year and the next 2 years. In this district, we do a 3-year out, current year plus the next 3 years. So we will see where we're at. And as you can see in our current year, you can see in the red, the change in fund balance. That's what we call in accounting deficit spending at this point, by $72 million. And in the out years, we're looking at a $21 million deficit and a $38 million deficit, and then increase up to $57 million deficit. So by in current year in 23-24, our current year second interim, we do have the 6% available reserve. That's after all the various categories as well. And we will go down to a 3% in 25-26. So we are still good at that point. But by 2026-27, we will be in the red with a negative of almost 7% in the reserve.
That's after we take action for this year.
So this is after you take action. And thank you for your question. So if the board does not take action tonight, this is your, if there's no staffing reduction, then this will be our chart. So then, obviously, current year, there's, obviously, this is still within our fiscal year, so nothing will be done. But next year, our fund balance will go down to 2.39%, and then we will be in a negative reserve at that point in 25-26.
And aren't we mandated by state to have a 3% reserve?
Yes, 3%, but the board does have the 3% reserve as well, so yes.
So what are the consequences of this?
So, as you know, we had our financial advisor that did come and presented to us as our district is looking at making refis on the prior bonds to save taxpayer dollars, about $3.6 million. Currently, our district, we have a very favorable credit rating from Moody's at AA2. So most districts in California, the average rating is actually AA3, which is lower than what we're at. So we're actually in a very prestigious category for that. And if we do not take action, then there's a possibility that we may not be able to do this process to save taxpayer the dollars as well. And we would also be filing a qualified budget to the county at this point. I will not be able to file a positive budget based on this other slide here. So a second, hold on. Okay, sorry, going back this way. So the current budget that we're proposing will be the first one when all the actions are taken. If we, the board, choose not to make action on the reductions, then we would have to change our filing to a qualified at this point.
And if that was to take place, since we are contemplating a bond in the future, you would probably mean we would not be successful in that bond?
It will be tough. I think it will be tough. Obviously, investors would like to have a better rating, and where we have been at, we were looking at to see if we can get some type of upgrade as well, since, you know, we have managed, the board has, and the district has managed finances, you know, well through this point. And if we do show this kind of financial statement, there will be some jeopardies, of course. And so the investors could lose confidence in that level. We are not sure. We would have to go back to talk to our financial advisor to see if we could actually make that refunding at this point.
Nancy, what happens if we file qualified, and what happens after that?
So qualify means, so thank you, great question, means the district may or may not be able to provide the financial obligations, right? May or may not be able to do it. So we are still okay. It's going to be really, we would have to look at our cash flow to see where we're at. So we will actually do even a deeper analysis to do that. Now, depending where we're at, if we are already in the red pretty early on, if it gets worse, we could possibly file negative, and at that point, then the county would take over. The state would actually appoint an administrator to come in and do that, and that will be not something I would recommend. I think we would need to come together as a group to try to come up with options at this point instead of going that direction. But we also want to make sure that the state, given where the state level is at currently, there's a possibility of deferral that we all have experienced not that long ago, and we need to make sure that we have enough cash as well. It's not just the fund balance. You need to make sure you have enough cash in the bank. So I hope people realize it's important that we make payroll. People have, you know, they have obligations at home that they need to have, and we understand that. We take our jobs extremely seriously. We monitor our cash, and we want to make sure that we can, especially to make payroll, that's extremely important.
Can you explain what deferral means?
Deferral means, okay, thank you. Deferral means that, let's say the state was supposed to give us money in July. They would say, now, we can pay you in July, maybe we'll pay you in August. Or the September payment may be paid in February. So we either borrow against ourselves, or we have to go out and to borrow from the county or somewhere else.
But it works the other way because the state has a $73 billion deficit. They have deferred dealing with that deficit. That means they've kicked the can. At some point, that's going to come due. And when it does, they're going to say, well, you know, we've deferred it as long as we can. And at that point, that means severe cuts into the education budget. So that's what we're trying to manage and trying to be very fiscally responsible at this critical juncture for the district.
And the 23, 24, the commitments, as you can see, is here. We have the various commitments that we have. We still have some payment for the CNG. There's some bus leasing as well. So tonight, our recommendation is the board will take action to adopt the second interim report with a positive certification then to the Orange County Department of Education. And the next update that we'll be getting will be the May revised. Governor will be releasing his numbers. And we will be taking the updated numbers to the board in June. And so obviously, right now, there's a lot of different things happening as we are continuing to get monthly revenue numbers from the state level. And so we're monitoring those as well. And hopefully, we're hoping that things doesn't get worse, but we just don't know at this point. There's many years of gaps at this point. The governor didn't address a lot of the shortfalls, and we really need them to start handling those. Otherwise, deferring things in the out years when we are already spending money in current year, that is not responsible for us either, for them to be pushing the can down to us, and we have to take a hit for it either. So it's really tough when you do not know your revenue and you're already starting your expenditures for that current year, and that's what we are experiencing with them. And there's going to be possibility that we are seeing that if the money hasn't been spent or if the money hasn't been allocated, that they could possibly take those money back as well. So there's just anything is possible at this point at that level. And not that long ago, there was sweeping of dollars. Remember, this was, I mean, we had that phenomenon that happened. We're able to sweep a lot of the categories dollars, and so who knows? It could be, that anything could happen at this point. I've been in this industry. This is 20 years at this point, and we have seen this kind of happen up and down. But this time, it came really, really quick. So from getting all this one-time dollars to a 0% COLA, that is really, really quick. And so unfortunately, a lot of the COVR dollars are coming to an end pretty soon, especially the bigger ones from the federal government. So the ESSER 3 money, the expenditure deadline is September of 2024. So a lot of the one-time dollars are coming to an end at this point. And so that concludes my presentation, and I'm now happy to answer any more questions that you may have.
I had a couple questions. Can you return to slide 5, please?
5, okay. Is this 5?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. So when we're looking at our enrollment in ADA, can you clarify how much each percent costs us when it comes to attendance?
So it's a little bit, you mean a percent or?
How much each percent loss of attendance?
So I think when we initially calculated, I believe it was, okay, because it's a little different. It's a 3-year averaging. And so I think we estimate between 9 to $12 million around that time, I believe, right? Is that the number? But it's tricky. It's a 3-year averaging. So you go back 3 years. And so depending on what those numbers are, and then that's the year. So I think when we went and did the analysis last time, and so it's around that dollar amount. And so yes, if we can increase our attendance rate, but unfortunately, it's not going to be 1-for-1, right? Because it's also based on, the way how we do the attendance is current year or prior year or the 3-year averaging, whichever is greater. And so there's a lot of different math we put into the formula to get our rates.
And then I had a question on, if you could return to slide 7.
Okay. Oh, no, I'm going backwards, okay. Slide 7, okay.
Yes. You mentioned ESSER funds. Were the ESSER funds just specifically used for certified staffing levels, or were they used for other staffing levels?
We did have both. So we were able to hire some classified staff as well, but majority of them were on teachers.
It also went to counselors.
Well, the counselor too, so that's right, thank you.
But last year, we released or did not bring back counselors, some other staff and that, so.
Yes, so last year there was some classified staff as well as certificate, yes,
Right.
but they were mostly temps, I believe.
Right, all temporary, yes, temporaries, okay.
Yeah, see, my question, oh, go ahead.
So last year, there were, I think, 10 college and career readiness specialists that were reduced, and then I think we had 14 counselors, about 17% of the counseling force that was reduced. They were temps that were hired with the COVID funds.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we go to slide 6?
Okay.
And this could be for Cabinet or Nancy. How did we, we've known that this declining enrollment has been happening, and we understood the budget deficits. We didn't know it was going to come this fast with the zero COLA. How did we address our declining enrollment? In what ways had we addressed declining enrollment?
Okay.
So a few things. One, we have been really intentional with our F1 program as an example, of trying to bring more international students to our schools, which has helped to offset very little right now. Obviously, the pandemic had an impact, but prior to the pandemic, we had I think it was about 60 to 70 students up until 1920 when the pandemic hit. We're now getting closer back to the 50 range, but with the idea that we have more coming in, so that'll help offset. We're also trying to do some things with our teachers in our schools around e-cadence and the way that we look at credit recovery versus grade improvement, helping students pass in real time. We spend about $2 million in some programs in addition to about $400,000 a year on Apex licensing. Apex is a credit recovery online program that we use. And so if we can help students in real time earn passing grades through credit recovery or grade recovery modules that right now are being established and built by teachers at CVA, in addition to some other teachers that have been selected to help build the drafting of those modules, that'll reduce the number of students who need summer programs or that credit recovery, hence reducing the need for Apex licenses and hiring folks over the summer. So that's another thing that's going to help reduce some of the funding. And then obviously, one of the other things that we're looking at is if the board should choose to pursue a bond. I know about, Nancy, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, about $100 million is spent yearly, I think, in helping to upgrade facility needs and repairs. And if a bond were to pass, obviously the bond is used to upgrade and improve facilities. So that would be another way to save and help offset some of the decline. Our pathways, the work that we're doing instructionally, I think that's also helping. But the reality is, I think Nancy said, just given what's happening in Orange County with the cost of living, along with just decline in birth rates, right, and what we're seeing matriculate up, is also going to impact. And then the other thing too is CVA, although it's still a relatively new school, that is being used to attract other students outside of the district to come in because many other districts don't have an online academy, and if they do, it's pretty much Apex. Or what's Adventum. So we're trying to do a more rigorous, relevant curriculum that our teachers have developed at the CVA schools to make sure that the students are getting a really whole child experience connected to our drivers, the 5 Cs, student voice, purpose, and the technical skills. So those are some of the things that we've been doing to try to offset the decline in enrollment.
Thank you.
And obviously, the board already has taken the very, it was a hard decision to consolidate as well. And we're doing it in a very thoughtful way. And I know some people may say, well, it's still very fast. But from beginning, when we started this process to when it could happen in fall of 2025, it's going to be 3 years. So we took an entire year to look at the data, look at where, and look at how. I mean, some of the initial data point, and then now is how and where exactly in location and all that. And so we have, want to thank the 2 principals at those sites to involve all the staff and parents in the community with that as well. And so those are really tough work, but if we don't even do that, then we'll be even in a tougher spot at this point. So we are, doing all the hard work that we need to do at this point.
So if I understand you correctly, basically where we're at with classified staff, we're back to where we don't have any extra staff on board based upon the 27-18 year. Mm-hmm. But we are still above, or still below, excuse me, the negotiated rate with the teachers, correct?
Based on student load, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So all the classified from the one-time dollars, they are no longer here.
Right, thank you.
One last question. If you could go to slide 17.
Okay. 17, right here?
Yes.
Okay.
So you mentioned if the board did not take action, that would put us in a deficit already in the following year?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
On slide 14, when we look at the piece of the pie, and we talk about the LCFF, can someone on the dais talk about how we address the local control funding formula as a district?
Can you repeat your question?
On slide 14, we look at the pie, maybe Robert, we could talk about the process that.
Oh, you mean like the process for the LCAP?
The LCAP process and how we invite
Yes, definitely.
committee
So,
members and parents.
so through the LCAP process, obviously, we want all voices represented and making recommendations on how to, use our funding that is given to us through this process, and keeping in mind that these are recommendations based on available funding. So we take the recommendations, look at what's available, and we do the best to apply those recommendations to what we already have based on the state priorities and our LCAP goals.
And President Randall Trejo, with the LCAP process, when the MOU had expired with our teacher union and we were to lose the teachers that we had hired with the temporary funds, it was because of the LCAP process and the recommendations around class size that it made it very easy and kind of gave the district cover to continue with the class size reduction that we had for those out years until the temporary fundings have left.
I remember that. Thank you. Any more questions? All right, thank you, Nancy.